Yep. 9 o'clock.
I don't know why we have commission meetings after a holiday.
I know, because you can't follow up.
All right, welcome this morning to Board of County Commissioners meeting. Have you? Hopefully the rain has kept the fires down, right, Sheriff? As always, we'd like to first welcome you, and then we'd like to ask for any of the who would volunteer for a prayer, reading, or thought, and then after that, we'll have somebody who would volunteer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Is there anybody out there who would like to participate with us and do that? Okay, seeing none.
I will lead us
Oh.
in
You got a pledge?
the pledge.
You got the prayer? Very good. Your office has got it handled.
Want to take care of it?
Thank you.
Spring Kenton. Dear kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for this beautiful day that you've blessed us with. We thank you for the moisture that you have given us, and we thank you for this opportunity to come together and listen and join together as a county to make important decisions. We ask for guidance in all of our words and all that we do, and give us a bless during this session. We ask and say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
And
Please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, looking through our agenda, just for informational purposes, as we go through the agenda, we'll first build our consent agenda. After the consent agenda has been built, if there's anyone who would like to speak to any of the items that we've put on consent, you can come up and just state your name and speak to them. Otherwise, if you'd like to speak to an agenda item as we get to it, just come on up and state your name when we're on that agenda item. And at the very end, if there's public here for general comment, that'll be held at the end, other than what's on our agenda. So with that, we have a number of consent. We have 30 that are listed on the consent agenda. I would like to see number 6 held, number 13 and 14, number 19, 21, 25, 27. Are there any others on
Got
consent?
mine on that.
You got yours on that?
Yeah.
Good.
25, yes.
This is what happens when you have a vacation before and we don't have a chance to actually talk with some of the staff. There's lots of questions that pop up. Okay, so, and then, the rest on regular agenda, will be on consent except for what we pull off. And number 2, if we could hold number 2. Number 5. I think that's it. Any others?
On 6, it can stay on consent, but it didn't get typed in the contract, but that date entered would be January 31st, 2018.
None, I did have questions on 10.
On 10? Okay, so number 6, the date needs to be
January
changed.
31st.
January
Well,
31st.
it's in the comments, it's just not on the contract.
Okay, so
So Ralph let us know that, so.
Okay, so if that's in there. And then you said number 10? Number 10, okay, very good.
Still trying to get a deed report on a piece of property to make that work.
Okay,
They keep telling me it's gonna get done and it hasn't, so I think I might.
so instead of continuing, you'd like it to strike it, so will we get it? Well, but it's easy enough to strike it, and then,
And then he'll put it back on.
okay, so number 4 to strike, if that's okay, commissioners? On consent? Then you're all done, huh? You're out of here?
Go get that deed done, right?
Okay. So that's billed. Is there any comments on consent? On consent agenda, okay. We will move to number 6 then. Lee, Brian, this is a simple question. I was reading down through this and I noticed that for the addition of ADA accessible equipment, my question was, do we not have ADA accessible equipment in the past? Why?
Well, in the past, the ADA accessible equipment we've had has been the traditional voting machines. But this is a whole new system that we are leasing this time around. And because of the 3rd Congressional federal requirements, we have to utilize the ADA compliant components that are certified with this system.
Oh, I see. So you're talking about the equipment that's used for doing the mail-in stuff. Is that?
Well,
not
it's
the
actually in
voting
our
booth?
vote centers.
For
We
the
have,
early vote and the,
well, there's no early vote, but on election day, there are vote service centers. There'll be 18 locations plus here at the county being 19, and those all have to have ADA compatible equipment.
And so they're not the ones we've used in the past. They're.
No,
Oh, I get it. Okay. I was
'Cause-
thinking we were compliant with the ADA stuff in the past. Why
Yes,
aren't
we have
using
been.
that for this, for the.
But this next generation of equipment that also factors in the authentication of signatures and doing a all-by-mail election is a different version, different equipment,
I
different
see.
system, and so.
and it's still encumbered in the same funds that we allocated for the special election.
Yes, in fact, when we requested that, we knew that we'd have to request this component.
Okay, perfect. All right, that answers my question.
I move that we approve consent agenda item number 6 as stated.
Second?
We had a motion and a second to approve consent agenda item number
No, I see
6.
it's on one of
As
these.
stated, all in
Yeah,
favor, say aye.
something real quick.
Aye.
Aye.
One quick thing,
Brian.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
In looking at this, and Paul reminded me, is we were going to add additional detail, an attachment that broke that down. And I don't believe that got attached. And have you seen anything that was supposed to be sent?
Well, since it's approved, why don't you just send it to us so we just know what we approved? We know we have to do the special election.
We can
don't-
continue it for a week too, there's no problem.
So that we get all the documentation in?
Yeah, what it is it's just an amendment that actually itemizes.
Oh, I see.
Showing what that is.
'Cause
what-
there is an attachment in here.
There is an attachment there?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
because it wouldn't be on the agenda if there wasn't an attachment, but
Well,
it's,
The amendment's in there.
The amendment's there, but the amendment needed
Detailed is what you're
an
saying.
attachment to that amendment that had the schedule.
so
Now
what's your
that I'm look-
pleasure?
I will leave it to the wish of the chair.
Well,
I'm okay
I
with
can
it.
go, I
I'm
can leave
okay
it.
with it.
Okay, we'll just.
Okay, then we'll make sure that, because we do want to follow protocol on all our contracts, that you do
Yeah,
get a
so why
copy
don't
of
we
that. so-
approve it and can we approve it so the document can be added after as part of the formal record? Being attached to it, but not needing approval.
Yeah,
That way it's part of the record, so that it's standard.
it needs to be attached, but I think the agreement itself stands alone. So
Okay.
I think it's fine going forward the way we are.
Fine way to-
Good enough.
Okay. Okay, now we're on, we got the first ones here coming up. After all that work, we're finally, and the reason why I thought we need to probably hold these is one, to just talk about the process, make sure and state the findings that are there, and then, and I'm gonna assume that everything's gonna be approved and go through, but I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about the process, what you thought
Okay.
about, you know, this process also versus the last way that we went through it, and just kind of do a double check with it.
Okay. Both of these are our 20-year initial review for established agricultural protection areas. We have 2 of them due this year. We, just a few weeks ago, we finalized changes to the county code, which enables the county legislative body to do an initial review, to make a decision if they are going to continue these ag protection areas for an additional 20 years, or if there appears to be some concern with them, if they needed to be terminated or modified, or if they were part of, had complaints issued on them within a certain time period, then those would have to go through the full review. So this is just an initial review to determine whether they will be continued for another 20 or if we're going to go through the full review. Do you want just to jump into the first one? Is that
Yes.
good? Okay. So this first one, again, it was established in 1997. This is the Allred Properties modification and Allred's addition 2016 modification. So it was originally an ag protection area with a couple of modifications along the way. After talking with our attorney with counsel, they have us, even though we had modifications, that we take it back to the original date of the ag protection, so when the first one was established. So that has been the 20 years for this one.
Oh, can I just clarify then?
Sure.
So the modification won't trigger another 20 years. We're saying if we do this one, even that modification, everything starts again from
Right.
here. Okay.
Correct. That's my understanding. Again, this is all new. So this is our first one that we're actually doing a review on. I did go out to the site, took some pictures, looked at the area, did do some contacts with the property owners by letters. Some of them I actually contacted, when I did have telephone numbers, I contacted them by telephone. And this property is still in orchard production. There is one small area that was approved in 2016 where it was ranching, kind of cattle ranching, so they had some cattle there that was approved. And it's still in agricultural protection. As a matter of fact, this Allred one, they with that last addition, they actually do have that area planted now, and those trees are growing. They're small, but they're growing. So this area appears to still be in ag protection. No complaints were registered. I did contact the sheriff's office, sent them an email, and health department. This is new to them too, but they didn't get back with me, so I'm assuming we're good to go because of what this is. We just don't have a lot of complaints over orchards, those types of agricultural protection areas. With the new ordinances that are in place and staff findings, the findings that I have here are the Allred Properties Modification and the Allred Addition 2016 Modification Agricultural Protection Area was initially created in 1997 and is now in its 20th calendar year and due for an initial review of the County Commission as per Utah State Code 1741-304 and Utah County Code 2639. Second staff finding, Utah County Community Development has not received any written complaints within the required time. And the third finding, the site visit by community development staff and pictures taken on July 12th, 2017 indicate that the land is currently in active agricultural production of orchards and active land use of horse and cattle ranching. So it was staff's recommendation that we continue this for an additional 20 years.
Okay. Very good. So with those findings, if we could, I'm assuming have a motion.
Yep, I'll move that we approve the, excuse me.
Accept the initial review and then probably approve.
Yeah. I move that we accept the review from staff and the initial review and approve regular agenda, consent agenda item 13.
Would we reauthorize or approve? Is it?
We,
Year period.
Well, the question is do I need to state the motion as reauthorize or just approve?
Probably reauthorize
Okay.
would be.
I'll amend my motion to say reauthorize instead of approve.
Second?
I've got a motion and a second to accept the initial review and to reauthorize the agricultural protection for the next 20 years. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0.
Okay, great. Oh, and I forgot to state my name, Peggy Kelsey from Community Development.
I was wondering who you were.
Wondering who I was. Okay, this next one is the Cassie Allred Agricultural Protection Area, and this one's located north, more up by the Lehigh American Fork area. Again, this one was created in 1997. It did not have any modifications with it. It was created with approximately 146 acres. Since then, there's been a lot of land that's been annexed, and so we are now down to 25.77, but that's still in active agricultural production. I did perform a site visit on the 11th of July. I actually drove back and walked the southern part of the property, and the property owner was there at the time, and so she walked back there with me with her mother. And they are growing hay, and they do have animals that are grazing on the property. So I would consider this still in agricultural production. Again, I contacted the Sheriff's Department and the Health Department, did not receive any information back from them. I do not have anything on file as far as complaints for this agricultural protection area. I will say that the city is fast encroaching on this area. There was a lot of subdivisions around this area. And so in speaking with one of the property owners on site, they do want to have it remain in ag protection. So along with all of the codes and ordinances, the current codes and ordinances, staff findings similar to the previous ones, that the Cassie Allred Ag Protection Area was initially created in 1997 and is now in its 20th calendar year, and it's due for the review. As per state code and county code, Utah County Community Development has not received any written complaints within the specified time period. And the site visit conducted by community development staff and pictures taken indicate the land is currently in active hay production and horse and cattle ranching. So staff would also recommend reauthorization of this ag protection area for an additional 20 years.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, a motion to be in order.
I move that we accept the initial 20-year review of the Casey Allred Agricultural Protection Area and that we reauthorize the area for an additional 20 years for agricultural protection.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to accept the initial review and the findings that were found in item number 14. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have somebody raising their hand back there. Did you want to speak to that issue? Oh.
I wonder if it's on the next agenda item that we have is number 19. Is it on 19?
I think you guys already moved through the consent. I would want to know if we could go back and comment on number 2. Yeah. Possible, I apologize.
For the Peck Rock supply?
Correct.
I'm fine with doing that
Sure.
if you're fine with doing that. Okay.
Come forward, Hidel.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we're gonna accept a comment here.
Because this was on our consent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm JT Green with Sumrall Green. I have the party in interest here, Rick McKell. It was his property that was seized by the county. And then posted for sale, all the items, but one, I believe, had a no bid for the record. What we'd like to speak on or oppose the recommendation here today as part of the attachment, the memorandum from the auditor. We appreciate the patience of the commission, Jeannie Bowen, and Court Griffin, who's not here today. We've been trying to resolve this since last August. The only thing we oppose here now is the sale of the 2 vehicles that Rick McKell's team had brought subsequent equipment to put in place or to hold off on those pieces of equipment that are potentially being sold, which would be the fuel truck and the service truck. Those are critical to Mr. McKell's operation. As you can imagine, the county and the team I've just mentioned, both Court Griffin and Jeannie, are aware of how critical those items are. So we would like to oppose the sale of these 2 pieces of equipment, and we would like to offer other pieces of equipment in lieu of those to try to get these 2 items back to Mr. McKell so his business can still proceed and operate and function as a business, as these 2 pieces are critical. We ask this because this all has happened really fast in the last few weeks, and there were certain representations made by members of the county, none of which are Court Griffin or Jeannie Bowen, that we could bring other pieces of equipment in and make an offer to the county. And then later, a day or 2 later, that particular member of the county called late and said, well, I have to retract that. I don't have the authority to do that. But Mr. McKell and his staff had already been reacting to that representation and brought other pieces of equipment to the county on his own to try to collect these 2 critical trucks. So I don't know if we could get an extension or more time before you authorize and sign this bill of sale as recommended by other members of the county, so we could get the funds necessary and or provide other equipment to get these 2 critical pieces, these 2 trucks from the county.
I see. I wonder if court or
Well, the problem is on this one is the county legally and lawfully owns those pieces of equipment now.
Correct.
And so we received multiple bids as well as the offer, from what I remember, even the verbal offer, whether it was valid or not. We heard the offer. The county, following the practice it always has, accepted the highest offer for all of them, which outbid the offer that I was told, that we were told, came from you guys.
Right, originally I made an offer by email to court, and then Jeannie asked us to provide another one to take care of $100,000, the current 2017 taxes, and get that in writing. I apologize, I can't make this up, it's not a dog ate your homework. My wife is fighting 2 forms of breast cancer. I did not get that email out. I got the email to Jeannie as soon as I could saying, hey, this is what happened. Can we still do something here? That's when she said they had received another offer. I did not know it was from Peck Construction. She did tell me the amount, but again, the way that statute is, and I know we have folks here that can interpret it, it is at the county's discretion once that property has no sale, and you have full discretion to do with that property as you like as the county. So that, in my mind, could create some flexibility, as I discussed with Court and Jeannie, that we could come forth with an offer to make this right, whether it was with equipment or cash. We didn't know that there were any other offers. Now I've heard there were up to 3 offers, and 140, I believe, was the number I was given as the current highest offer. We're not asking for any changes to the other equipment as offered by Peck. We're just asking if you would set aside the 2 trucks as named so we could either bring other equipment in or come up with some type of counteroffer to protect those 2 items. So the county already has several items in their possession here as value or as cash, and we would shore that up with either more equipment or with other cash to make this whole thing go to bed or to rest, because I know this has been going on since last August.
Dave?
Yeah, Court's here. You could
Or
address
Court.
that, I think.
Oh, I didn't see him, sorry, Court.
There's no, Court Griffin, Deputy Utah County Attorney. I'm not aware, I wasn't in all last week, I don't know what's happened since the sale. However, I know that this has been going on for quite some time. I don't see an offer here to match the offer that's on the table. I would assume that the county would go forward with what's on the agenda. Any questions for me?
I mean, it does put us in an awkward spot since I think we actually received the money. Is that correct? Did
That's
we?
my understanding.
We didn't solicit the money, they sent it. Cause I was on the phone with the
And we
treasurer.
can't mind read why somebody, when they go down through and buy pieces of equipment, if they're doing it as a lump with all of the equipment, or if they're doing it because they want 1 or 2 pieces. I mean, it looked like they wanted all of it, so it's kind of an awkward spot for somebody who has also bid on it.
I think it was a collective bid for the total
It was
amount.
for all of the ones that were presented to us.
Even though there's a breakdown per item, still,
It was a
it was
collective.
Yeah.
it was a package deal that was offered.
Well, there was a breakdown in listing the items, not a
Correct.
breakdown of dollar per item.
Actually, we
there
have
is-
$1 per item.
Yeah.
I don't remember that part.
So Jeannie Bowen, Treasurer's Office, we have received a wire for the 140, and they did list a breakdown of each item and what each item they were willing to pay. Yes.
That wasn't on the initial document given to us. It was just literally, because I asked you who
so
that
it-
signature was, because wasn't on company letterhead. You verified it, and it said
the-
$140,000 and 7 items on it. Or however many items it was.
So it should have been on that, because that's how I got my numbers. Do you have the paper? I can go grab them. So that is how I came up with my bill of sale papers, was copying off of their paper.
Nevertheless,
But they did bid as a whole, they did want.
Right.
They bid as a whole for the lump sum.
So did the other 2 that I'm aware of,
They paid us.
Bid as a whole.
as a whole. With the exception of 1 piece of equipment or something on the one.
So one company bid just as one item, that's all they wanted
Right.
was one item, and then the other company bid as a whole, they did not break it out. They said that they would be willing to if you needed it, but they had not
Right.
done that.
Now, Just for clarity, the bid was not during the actual sheriff's
Nope.
sale, these were post-sale bids?
Right.
Right.
Okay. And was that presented or marketed through,
No, they all
Advertising
just
online.
appeared literally within 24 hours at the same time that we received a phone call. Well, I shouldn't say we. I was notified that a phone call was made by your interests to the county offering a certain amount as well.
or,
So that was discussed and taken into account before accepting or tentatively approving this.
we, both Jeannie and I had post my email offer discussions on increasing the bid. As stated, I was never able to finalize our final bid due to my wife's illness and being at the Huntsman Cancer Institute for several days. So at that point in our mind, we believed that there was still a process of negotiation in place and that you had not accepted or ratified or finalized any other offers.
That's what we're doing now.
So is it possible that we could set this aside for a day or two for us to come and present a final offer?
I'm personally not interested in that, but there are two others.
I would also vote no, just for how long this
You
has
don't
gone
get to
on.
vote.
Oh. my opinion.
There's only 3 of us that got elected to do that.
Just for how long it's gone on and for how little I have received, because we actually started discussion on this last April of last year. We'd seized the first pieces of equipment in June of last year.
When was the meeting up in the attorney's office? The first,
The-
which wasn't the initial one. Is that what you're referring to as April?
Very initial meetings would have started in like April of 2016. And since then I have received like no money, no concrete anything.
Here's my concern. My concern is that if we pull out 2 pieces of equipment and go for hire, which seems like it's in the county's interest to do so because maybe you get more money out of it, which would be a benefit to the county. But nevertheless, then the individual who's going after the others may say, well, I'm not gonna pay for the rest of those there, and they pull the rest of the bid out. Now we're stuck with trying to do it, trying to go out and get the money again on the other pieces of equipment. It just kinda, it tangles it really kind of in a weird way.
I understand the risks in the county's position, all the people, like I said at the outset, everyone here has been very patient with us and with Rick McKell. But just one brief correction, the county had in possession about $100,000, and then after some other closeout costs and attorney's fees, had in its possession about $73,000 of Mr. McKell's money that we wanted to apply towards those funds. The county held those 2 initial pieces of equipment, did not sell them, and I understand why. The county is working with us and being very patient, so there's no finger pointing there. But those 2 pieces of equipment were out of service, were not able to be used to make or earn revenue or income for Mr. McKell's company. And then again, if you follow the guidelines of the rule of the proceeds after the sale of Mr. McKell's lot, understanding it was personal property to him, the county held on to those monies for a very long time before other creditors started to come out of the woodwork. And then Mr. Griffin was needed to file an interpleader action, or felt he needed to file an interpleader action to protect the county's interests. But had we moved or been able to resolve things timely back then, the county could have had $73,000 plus the 2 pieces of equipment, which would put the county north of $100,000 and then some on a more timely basis than this has dragged out for a long time, which granted, it has, absolutely it has. So I know it's a lot for the
reason
county
we
to
didn't
take
sell
some
those
risk.
right away actually was a commission decision. Because of that
Absolutely.
time, what we wanted to do was, our intent was, while there was conversation going on, we wanted to allow Mr. McKell to regain that property so that he had a way to provide for his family, do his business. And so that was the assurances that everything was proceeding. That's the delay.
Absolutely.
And then after a year, when nothing happened, the recommendation came back to us for something different. And that's why the sale happened. It would be my recommendation, if you're offering something of same value, maybe talking to the buyer, since you are aware of who it is, since everything has a contract, maybe offering in exchange and working out a deal with that, if it's that important. Because if it's got the same value, then it has the same value to that person as well, right? Then it minimizes the county's risk, and maybe everybody wins in that situation. That would be my recommendation, but that's not anything I can order.
Sure, sure. So the commission wouldn't give us 1 to 2 days, 24 to 48 hours to come up with something and/or visit with Peck Rock Products?
Problem is the commission doesn't meet every 2 days.
Right.
And so,
But at least if we put something durationally that's short-term like that, you would have confirmation through either the county attorney's office or through Jeannie that something was solid or that you had funds in place, or we had an agreement with Peck.
I'm just getting, I feel for your personal situation, but where I personally get hung up a little bit was there was a time window there for you to respond. And that didn't occur, is what I'm understanding.
Yes, Jeannie was trying to work with me or us to get another subsequent offer in front of the county before the meeting, which I apologize, it didn't happen. That's on me.
And I appreciate you owning that. That's just where I get hung up.
No, I'm not,
So-
this is not a finger pointing me any at all. Like I said, I can't say it enough. The members of this team.
Because we've kind of
the county.
gone through this other process, accepted
Right.
it, and not formally, but agreed to a term there. That's where I'm hung up on this particular one.
you know, this feels like our 1 o'clock meeting or BOE. The heartstrings are there. But
Yeah, and that's kind of how I'm feeling on this. The person, the human side of it, I feel the empathy there, but the reality is we have to follow a procedure to make sure we are equitable and fair throughout. And I feel like there was a window of opportunity there. It wasn't seized in the correct window, and therefore we can act on the proposals that we did receive. That would be my inclination.
Okay, well, I'm getting the sense that we're gonna proceed with how we put it on a consent agenda, and so it's gonna go forward with how we've already, how we've stipulated here in the agenda.
Do you have any last thing to say?
Yes, I want to apologize for the long period of time. I'm a lot like JT, I don't like making excuses, but I lost a daughter in March, and colon cancer and 2 heart attacks prior to that, so that didn't help. And my key CFO left and went to Arizona, and in process wiped my computers, and that's been probably one of our biggest hurdles, is just trying to resurrect all of that. When this lot that we're talking about sold to David Levitt, Governor Mike Levitt's brother, in an effort to pay some other bills that I owed. I had worked a deal out with Mike to pay additional money in an effort that he didn't have to wait the 160 days or 180 days that allowed me to buy the lot, purchase the lot back. He wanted to get moving on his home, so he was willing to pay additional money. This is post sheriff's sale, knowing that I had issues that I was trying to resolve with the county with this equipment property tax, and I even offered up some extra things to help him out if he would be willing to pay the extra. So in my mind and in his mind, he said, hey, it's closed. August 25th was the date that he wrote the check to the county for the sheriff's sale, and he says, now get down there, that's your money, and do what you have it intended for, and that is pay your property taxes. And that's, I guess, I'm trying to say, you know, a year ago, or just not quite a year ago, I was doing everything I could in a proactive way to have every dollar of that given to the county to start chipping away at this and start working towards a conclusion and finality to it all. And that's why I've been nothing but accommodating to the county sheriff department. I've hauled equipment down. We made an agreement that the county wouldn't do anything to harm me from my business. I have jobs that I've been doing for UDOT and for the state, and these two particular pieces are very critical in my operation. And that's why I'm willing to swap or trade around. When I found out that they were in the cell the other day, we had actually delivered other pieces of equipment in an effort to get those pieces back, and that was in agreement with whomever we were working with at the sheriff's department at the time. But then it changed dramatically, and then all of a sudden they were all packaged together, and that's when I went into the panic mode, because I thought, okay, so there's 7 pieces. They've sold one here just recently for $20,000. If I could just get those other 2 pieces back, I don't care if the other additional pieces are already there that would have released the 2 trucks. Let's sell those and get as big a chunk or nick out of what I owe with those items, and it's a win for everyone. But I have a mechanic that has to keep the equipment going. I have contracts I'm supposed to have state roads and UDOT roads completed on, and the other truck is a fuel truck that I keep the equipment fueled with. So they're like, it's basically like blowing both my legs off and trying to continue operation. Been in business for 35 years and never really been in a situation like this before, nor do I ever want to be. It's kind of the perfect storm between the personal items that happened and then hoping that I could have my hands on that money from the leftovers from that sheriff's cell to help with this whole matter. So that's where I really feel bad, is why those monies couldn't have been released on a fairly quick schedule back to the county, because that's what they were fully intended for.
Yeah, I know we've gone through this. I remember multiple conversations with it. It was never our intent to harm. I mean, if the county wanted to harm your business, they could have a long time ago.
Right.
They didn't. I think that they worked down through it, tried to make, the best possible actions to protect the county and also to keep you in business, because, I mean, we're not trying to put people out of business. That's not our goal.
Right.
At this point, though, I think your best option is to go talk with Peck Rock, and if those items sold to them, if you could get it for the same amount, if that's what the value is, if they'd be willing to sell that, I think that's going to be your best option at this point.
Well, there's nothing further that we could do, again, for 24 to 48 hours to get an offer or something before the county?
No, I don't get a sense that we have. Again, this has gone on for quite some time, and I think that it's probably best for us in the county to move forward as well, and to let you go negotiate for those, with another. I think it really clouds the process for us if we start backing out and then renegotiating and back and forth, and it throws it down the road for some other period of time, which we don't know. This has been going on for some time. We want to find some finalization with it.
One of the other offers that we had made, a year ago was, let us bring our mechanic in and our pressure washers and get this equipment looking the best it can look for the auction. And unfortunately, the way it went down so quickly, that opportunity didn't happen, and we would have done that at no cost, just in an effort to try to maximize value, not only for us and what credit we get back from the the county, but the county would also be able to realize the extra value in the sale. And, you know, that's always been, the direction that we were going to go in all the conversations we've had, you know, over the last several months is when we ultimately do this, give us a week or two and we'll go in and clean it up, steam clean it, make everything look really good. And, help with that process.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks for your comments on it. We'll have to move forward. All right, number 19. This is a supplemental law enforcement,
I guess I know why it's on there, because,
It's a
I'll speak to this real quick. It's not a
Sure, okay.
ratification.
Okay.
I called everybody at the sheriff's department. I did receive answers.
Okay.
I asked them if they needed me to come and sign it since I was in town because the others were working out of the office. And they said, no, we'll just take a verbal since it's Thursday night. And I said, a verbal what? I still haven't seen it. I said, it's on the agenda as an approve and authorize. I said, if you want to bring it and we can hurry and amend it, you know, potentially I can run it through the email chain. So it still needs to be on there as an approve and authorize. Nobody has signed it, but we performed the action yesterday.
Yeah, the action was performed.
I did also let Chief Deputy Brower, and I saw him walk in for a second. He's
Yeah,
not here.
he had to go on the meeting.
That it had been at least a discussion, and I can't remember if I raised it or whatever, but within the commission that we wanted to potentially review because he had also talked about the contracted rate, or Mr. Forshee did, about potentially raising, and I told him that it'd be a good idea that we probably audit those to make sure we're meeting that as we head into budget season, to make sure the contract rate, when we put on there, whether that's 53 or 51 or 57, in the same vein of making sure we charge that we're not subsidizing, is there. So
Right, that would not have changed the cost for this.
no. I just told him that I was interested in doing that with all the stuff that's been going on. So
I think that's a good idea.
So my questions, one was, you know, we're approving, authorizing, whatever after the fact, because it happened yesterday, which is always concerning to me. But yet it is revenue coming in. The other question is, and I'm struggling with these to a certain extent because the Provo Police Department has 105 sworn police officers. And they're contracting with us for, what is this one, 2 or 3? I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
Why would they even do that? Why would they do that if this wasn't like the sweetest deal on the planet? Because if they got 105 sworn police officers, it seems like they should be able to cover what's going on in their own city.
Well, these are special events. They're not things that occur every day. So the 24th, the 4th of July with the Freedom Festival and those types of activities, they do not have enough manpower. Again, they could call on us. We could do it for free with mutual aid, but they have elected to call on us and ask us to participate at a paid contract rate, which I think is a benefit to the
I
county.
think his question is why is Provo City expending the funds and not using their own force? Not why are
Why are they?
Again, they have all hands on deck. I know that they do not even allow vacation during these times. 24th and the 4th, unless you're sick and in bed, you have to come to work because they can't cover that, what is occurring. With the coverage in the city for the normal, whatever crime goes on day to day, and then the additional manpower needed to man the checkpoints and the public closures of the roads when they do the running, and then the parade route on the 4th. So those are things that they just cannot buy manpower. And I believe they do have
extra.
What's that?
And we've got extra.
On the 24th, yes. Yeah, we don't schedule a ton of extra people on the 24th for our own purposes, based on the fact that we don't have a large urban population. So there's not a lot of 24th activities going on out in the farmland.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, sometimes these requests come in pretty quick because they are trying to figure out what they do have and what they don't have and come up short. So again, we could respond at a request for free at mutual aid, but I think it's been a mutually beneficial thing that they've allowed us to do this and for pay.
Is mutual aid though typically for, I mean, it's not for events, right? I mean, that's usually for if you've
It,
got an
it can
emergency
be.
going on.
It can be, like major crimes, when they go out and do certain things for the city days. Those are unpaid and for mutual aid. Okay. Another good point, Under Sheriff Fortune, you just made out. Just like when we ask for and receive aid at the county fair, there are a lot of officers that will be at the county fair in an unpaid manner that are being donated by the cities. So it does reciprocate in many different areas. These, fortunately, I think for revenue purposes, Provo is elected to do that as a paid issue. But we do have multiple agencies donating officers for the county fair, hundreds of
Sure.
hours.
I guess my only concern, going back to Commissioner Lee's point, was I made a real big attempt offering to go drive and sign and change it to a ratify, I think, which looks better
Okay.
after the fact. That's my only concern really with it, is because I know we do these, that's what's kind of troubling to me in this case. However, I do know why. I don't know if we publicly want to say all the stuff that was going on during the time that they were dealing with, but I was willing to drive and do whatever, but.
Okay, well, in the future, we'll make you drive.
Okay, a motion to be in order.
Move that we approve and authorize the commission chair to sign the agreement in number 19.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve and authorize as stated number 19. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are you coming up for this one? Okay, this one is, we reduce the penalties. The amounts listed for the attached personal property accounts, and I'll just have to state that this one, some of these just drive me crazy. There's some on here for 22, this is number 21. We have some that owe 22 cents. And
Plus the penalty.
plus the penalty now. The penalty was 25. We want to reduce it down to 5, so they owe $5.22, 22 cents, 29 cents. And I understand that they have to pay, but I'm just wondering, how much time does your office put into collecting 22 cents? Do you send out a letter? What do you do? Because I'm at 49 cents for a letter. I'm wondering if we're,
Just should write it off.
I just struggle with that.
So that is why we actually have the new penalty of $5, because we do not even send a bill. Oh, so I'm Jeannie Bowen, Treasurer's Office. We do not even send a bill until it hits $5. And so that's why we wanted the penalty to be $5, so that way it'll force a bill.
Okay, so then that brings up another question for me. I can't stand people that increase penalties and create something when you just said, we don't even send them a bill. How can somebody pay something they don't know and then we give them a penalty?
So the penalty is a non-filing penalty. So every February, you receive a letter saying, what equipment do you have? You have until May 15th to actually file, where you log on to our website and say, I have a table, a desk, a chair, a phone, a computer, whatever you have. And then if you fall below 10,300, you can file exempt. You can check a box and say, I am exempt, please do not bill me. If you do not file, the assessor's office down the hall then will go in and go, well, you're a small business similar to these 3 small businesses. They will then estimate what you have. According to those other ones, they tack on an additional 20% estimation. And then that you also get a non-filing penalty. So that 22 cents is their estimation that you have a computer. And then the $25 penalty for non-filing, which we now would reduce to 5.
So are any of these payments or partial payments, and then they just were missing 22 cents?
None of
That
them.
was their assessment? Their assessment
No,
was 22 cents?
none of these are the partial payments. They just did not acknowledge any letters. So we send in a letter in February.
Right.
A letter in
It's just
So
April.
again,
None of
if
them
it's
are
not a
partial.
short payment, we spent a lot of man hours assessing a business that is worth 22 cents, 29 cents, $3.55, $1.79, $3.55.
Okay, so a
If they're not short payments, so the point is rather than going through this, The hours and minutes that we're sitting here talking about are ticking, and we have probably spent, in essence, and this is just a ballpark figure in counting what we're spending here, probably about $50,000 in taxpayer monies for these. For
So that's-
22 cents that gets split up, and of which the county portion is like 7.5%.
It's true. So the way Salt Lake has gotten away from this is Salt Lake doesn't even worry about you if you're a small business. You're not even in the system. It's not worth their money, their time, their anything.
Well,
So maybe that would be our next step is to, if you're a
there's
small
not-
business,
there's
we
not
don't
a one of
even.
them on here that if we just wrote them all off would even make a dent, because
Biggest one's like 80.
89,
71.
71.
Yeah.
And I promise you, the school district, when they get a check for $64, isn't going to be like, who cares? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I just see the problem, or the concern anyway, and it bothers me that we're chasing pennies.
So we're just trying to reduce it down to help people cut some of the costs right now, because,
Reduce it from $25
yeah, but if you're not even sending them a bill,
so we would send the bill now because so we
and
sent,
now
they
we're
sent
over
the first.
$5. That's why we have
Yeah.
$5.
We
sent the first
so that we
bill.
can now send them a bill.
We sent the first bill, they said, whoa, wait a minute, why do I get a bill? We said, we can reduce it for you. And we reduce it down.
How much, when you send them a bill, it's usually in mail form, right?
Yes, they
It's
mail it
certified
out.
mail.
It is not certified.
Okay.
Just regular mail.
If they're like
Anyway.
me, they're going to see a bill for 22 cents and be like,
Be 522.
Yeah,
right?
now it'll be 522.
So would we like to look at something like Salt Lake and not go after small businesses
well,
at
I
all?
just think there comes a point where you should be bringing before the commission wiping out 22 cents and 29, like these nominal, you know,
There's
again.
gotta be a line somewhere. I don't know where that line is,
Right.
$5, $10, $25, something in there that says this isn't really worth our time to go after. Of course, it's gonna stay on there, and they'll probably get some notification later on that they owe that 22 cents next year.
So the 22 cents, I mean, if they're seriously 22 cents, they would not get it for many, many years because it has to be $5 before we even send a letter.
Anyway, I think we need to have some conversation
I do
on
too.
it.
Oh, we need to fix it.
Yeah, and fix
Okay.
something with.
I appreciate you trying to reduce the penalty because $25 for 22 cent is.
Yeah, $25.22 is now what you owe, because you owed 22 cents.
So that
Boy,
probably is a
that's
lot.
I had a quarter right now. I'd help you get rid of 3 of these.
Okay, so last week we then voted to reduce it because it used to be even a higher penalty, right?
Right.
And so are we still not gonna pass this one, even though we can reduce it and hopefully get some, I think most of them would end up
I
as
think the
fine
question
again.
is so under number 8, right? Best human instance where you put 1 penny to $100. I realize that you can't owe less than a penny, right?
Right,
I think what we're saying is we'd like the treasurer's office, the treasurer, duly elected, to maybe make a recommendation of whether it's $5, $10, or whatever. And if you don't mail out for $5, then $5 should be the minimum, right? If you're estimating under $5, we write it off and pretend there's no tax, right? File them as exempt. Something like that. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Find out where that balance at is, where it makes sense to go after it or not. That's what I'd like to see too.
Mhm.
I don't know where that is. Might be $20, might be, who knows?
Where would you think a reasonable amount would lie? You see these a
Eh,
lot?
in my opinion, I would not go after any home-based businesses. These small businesses, I wouldn't even bill. I wouldn't have them,
And then bring
Do
that
any of
before us.
that.
Get Kim to do that.
I like
I'm
the
okay
sound-
with that,
I
too.
like the sound of that.
because then it saves all of
mean-
your assessor's office's time. They don't have to then waste their time even estimating.
Come on up, Mr. Assessor.
That's-
Let's spend more taxpayer money talking about 22 cents. Actually, this is a good conversation to have, though.
Chris Paulson, County Assessor. And we currently are having this conversation because Mr. Shawcroft and I have been in contact with each other over a similar situation with personal property. At one point, the question was asked about certified mailing. It was required at one time. And when the deadline of May 15th came up, the certified mailing went away because now you had a hard set deadline. Before, they had 30 days before 30 days after the initial mailing to pay and respond. Then we had to provide certified mailings after that. And we were spending about $50,000 a year in certified mailings. This is a process that's evolved over time. It used to be a $100 fee, even if it was 22 cents when I first came into office. And we petitioned to get it down to 25, and now the Treasurer's Office is petitioning to go lower. We've tried to be proactive, not only doing that, but the exemption didn't exist when I first took office. It was John Dougal and I who pushed for the exemption, which initially took out 50% of the accounts. About 90% of the revenue we receive comes from 10% of the accounts. So we have been evolving the system, and I would greatly appreciate more conversation on how we can make this more user-friendly. Every time we have tried to write off things at the state level, as the discussion is happening now, Salt Lake County has always opposed us. They currently are not looking at home businesses, but that's not always been the case. They have said to give an exemption, you have to provide all this documentation, which Utah County and others just fought to say, no, we can do this and make it much more easy. So additional conversation at this point is welcome. If we can make some policies, because we do have the latitude of policies outside of the state statutes that we can probably make this a lot simpler. Because it doesn't make sense to spend any time on 22 cents, because you are just wasting taxpayer money doing that. So the problem comes up, and that's what Jeannie has indicated. You received a list because these people did not file, and that puts them into a different category. So
My guess is the majority of these don't even realize they have to file.
some of these may not even be in business.
That's what I'm saying, because the amounts indicate such to me.
We
And-
send them a letter every year.
I know, we send greenbelt letters to the farmers too, but
I know, I'm just saying, we didn't.
So
we do
Chris,
that.
what would you recommend with this list that we have here today?
The list today, I don't know if your hands are tied. I don't think they are. I think you can have the discretion to do what's in the best
well,
interest of the
approving
county.
this list is just reducing the penalty that's currently listed on their account.
Yeah,
So
but
we can still have the conversation just by even approving this list. This
Approving the
takes it
list,
from
we're just
25 to
reducing
20
their
to 5.
penalty.
The estimation is part of this problem, because only the assessor has the ability to reduce to make any adjustment to the estimation. That's in code. Often, we will spin those into an audit so I can do something with the estimation. That's a backdoor way of handling it.
So you're saying that we either accept this, see, what's the wording on here? We approve reducing the penalty, or as a blanket, we say, no, we disapprove. So it's not like we can go in here and pick and choose. That's what I hear you saying.
I'd have to defer to Mr. Shawcroft on that one. Because I believe there
that's
are
true.
some limitations, and it
Right.
may result in what you just stated.
I would suggest you approve the list today and then look at the
And then
issue
still
going
keep
forward and
looking
see
at
what
it.
you want to do, but
I would
this
prefer
is a
just to-
reduction.
I would prefer to not, but.
Well, but right now on their accounts is listed a $25 penalty right now.
Correct.
Right,
So
so we can
at the
reduce,
very least, we can take it down to 5 today.
Oh, I
we
see.
can
So
re-
we're saying
we can
we're
reduce their
reducing
fee
the
today.
penalty down to
But
5.
now we know all the parties, they know that we want to have this conversation on maybe just writing in an ordinance of,
This doesn't
Eliminating home-based
impede you
business.
from doing something in the
So
future.
if we don't approve of this, then they're gonna have a $25
we're gonna
penalty
have a
As is
$25
right now, yes.
right now.
Yes.
And, okay, that changes my mind.
Yeah, that's, I mean,
So
I think,
no matter what, we're stuck. I mean,
Well,
we can't.
I mean,
there's
we're-
nothing
no,
we
but
can
I think
do.
the conversation, I think we're
kind
ready.
of- On this particular item, we're stuck, we're actually gonna help them by reducing their penalty today, and we can
And we're
help
gonna have an
long,
ordinance that's
we
gonna
can help
eliminate their
long-term
tax altogether.
by fixing it permanently.
When we've
in
got
the
somebody that's
future.
paying $89 and they get a $5 penalty, that's like, woo, somebody 22 cents, they get a $5 penalty. The percentages on that are just,
And part of this is,
Go
does
figure.
the 22 cent, do they even exist?
Right.
Salt Lake County actually has in-house auditors. We don't. We actually contract with the state to do all of our auditing. So they are more proactive to go out and find out if these types of businesses exist or not.
Again, if you're
I've been-
estimating them at 22 cents of tax value, is it even worth the phone call to
And-
find
and
out
I
if they
think-
exist?
But to get them out of the system, you gotta validate whether they exist or
That's
not.
true.
Right. And for me, part of the separation from the 22 cents versus one that's $80 or whatever it is the fee is for failure to file.
Yes.
It's not connected to your dollar amount. So for me, it's separated there. It's saying, look, you failed to properly file your tax. As a result, you're receiving a $5 penalty.
Commissioner Ivy's right.
And
Uh,
so
the-
that's, for
Sure,
me,
I
that's
agree.
where the separation.
And I don't disagree
To
with
I'm
that.
not disagreeing the
to
22
receive the
cents
I'm just
exemption
saying
for this
they
issue.
don't. My guess is if we had the resources, my guess is not one person on that list knows that they even need to file.
So all of
The-
these are
the-
failure
the-
to file?
In order to get the
Yes,
exemption,
yes.
even if they applied for the exemption because they would have qualified, the state statute still says you have to annually
You still have to
request for that
annually
exemption.
request.
So we need to amend.
That's another thing that Mr. Shawcroft and I will be talking about is future policies. Is that a policy that we can make that circumvents that so that we can do something for those who don't file that still fall within this de minimis value?
Well, I think the whole concept of home-based business, I think you, Kim, and the commission and the attorneys ought to have a conversation pretty quickly on ordinances.
And
what
I
we
think
can
that's
do.
where a good policy can come into play that can probably rectify a lot of this. So those discussions are going on currently, but what's before you today, I'm not saying you got a win-win here, because I don't think you do.
Win-win-win.
But to take no action is probably worse than not taking action.
Yeah, I see that with it, but, what would, either accept it or not, so.
Well, knowing we're gonna have further conversation on the issue, not this
Right.
particular, I'll move then that we approve the reduction of the penalty as stated in 21.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the reduction of penalty as stated in number 21. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That passes 3-0. All right, so next up is number 25. It's a resolution authorizing segregation, use, and expenditure of forfeit asset forfeiture.
Morning, Jeff Buman, County Attorney. Do you want me to give a little background for this?
Sure.
Please.
So just to note, the county's in complete compliance with current state code. So we're not fixing anything that's broken. This, the genesis of this arises from kind of some of the issues that have been discussed in the legislature in the last 5 to 7 years. As you probably know, forfeiture of criminal and civil, criminal proceeds has been a big debate in the legislature. I would note that Utah County Attorney's Office doesn't do civil forfeitures, which is where most of the debate is centered and most of the opposition occurs. We haven't done those for many years. We do our forfeitures through the criminal justice process. So essentially, when we seek to forfeit property, the property owner basically has the proof beyond a reasonable doubt standard applied to that forfeiture proceeding and all the protections that the criminal justice system affords. So we really aren't creating the problems that are being discussed in the legislature. Nonetheless, as we've thought about forfeitures and how to deal with them, we thought there might be a better way of how we use the money. So right now, when we conduct a forfeiture proceeding, we get 20% of the forfeited cash or value, which goes to the county general fund. And a lot of the debate nationally is whether forfeiture funds should be used to fund operations of government or whether they should be segregated and used for different purposes. So a few years ago, the state modified how they use forfeiture funds. So this is mostly from the police departments. So when a police department forfeits money through the legal proceedings, they get 80%. And that 80% is remitted to Utah State, and it's basically called the State Asset Forfeiture Grant Program. And in that grant program, the state allocates the monies based upon what the legislature has set up as the purposes of that grant program. So those purposes are codified in 24-4-117. And again, this doesn't necessarily apply to us directly, but we're using this as guidance on how to apply the forfeiture funds that the county attorney's office receives in the proceedings. And so the ordinance, the resolution in front of you is to kind of what we think is a good idea to mimic how the state utilizes the forfeiture funds that come in. And let me give a little historical background. You probably know this, but for many years, when forfeiture monies came into a prosecutor's office or a police department, there's a lot of latitude on how the agency could use the monies. And there were a lot of alleged abuses, none from in this area, but they would claim that departments were using them to buy fast cars or fund toys and gimmicks and things like that. None of that occurred here. But that's kind of the genesis of why the law changed. So the monies went to this state asset forfeiture grant program, so they could not be used any other way other than how the legislature set it up. So let me back up. So what this...
I ask you a question, though.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump in on this. The perception, though, from looking through this resolution as I read it, is that when I'm looking at the what is this here? It says, talking about the funds has a balance sufficient to pay the expenditures, and then it lists down below the expenditures that can be paid to. I mean, it does. It has things in there. It has things in there like the salaries and benefits and
bonuses.
And so on a perceptual basis, it looks as if you have the authority to go after the assets, and then the assets can be used at your discretion for these items, which perceptually gives a real negative look at it.
Well, hopefully we're looking at the same document, but on page 2.
Right, but it says not be used for, right? But then it says the actual verifiable legal costs. So the problem is to me, those are...
Hold on, where are you looking, Greg?
So I'm on 2. You can pay for, this is what your resolution says,
Right.
the actual verifiable legal costs, right?
So that's publication.
I understand.
Right.
But actual verifiable legal costs also is salaries. See, that's to me, because everything you do is taxpayer funded, right?
Right.
So then you come down to not used for payment of salaries, retirement, or bonuses. How do we draw that line?
Well, we can modify the language. Our intent is that actual verifiable legal costs are basically publication in the newspaper, which is required by statute, service of process if that's required, which it usually is not. Kind of those things that just to do the process of the forfeiture, we have to pay for by statute. We can clarify that
But
if that would
then
help.
it says you can't use it though for payment of expenses not related to law enforcement or prosecution.
Right.
So is not the publication prosecution?
That's part of the law enforcement or prosecution, yes. So you can pay for it for paying for process, but you can't pay for it for unrelated expenses. So, I
Do you
couldn't
have an
fund my
example
civil
there?
division with it.
Yeah, could you give me could you come up with an example there of?
Yeah, we couldn't buy a computer for the civil division. 'Cause that's not part of law enforcement or
You
prosecution
could
activities.
buy a computer for the criminal division.
Well, no, actually, we didn't include that either, but
Oh, okay. I'm asking there, so.
I'm just using an example of what we couldn't.
So I get,
Not.
so the question is, so let's say you have $500,000 of forfeiture funds. Never gonna happen, but let's say you do. What would you use it on? That's what I guess I'm asking.
So if our share was $500,000, well,
We're weighing
again,
hypothetical, I
yeah,
understand.
that's a hypothetical.
Big drug bust.
So what we've done in the past, we've put it into an account. The law changed, but for a while, the money had to be segregated, and it wasn't part of costs. So that money was kept in an account for many, many years, and it was used to fund prevention programs. We had DARE for a long time. We helped fund some of the DARE programs. We used it for using, I wasn't the county attorney for a lot of that, so I'm not sure what all the monies were used for. But they never went into salaries, never went into equipment. It actually sat there a long time. I think the county attorney, Mr. Bryson, used it for, I don't know, Dave, do you know what he used it for?
I'm more wondering what you'll use it for, because, I mean, this is all legal mumbo jumbo. I want to know.
It would
what-
probably, that much money, it would go to fund programs like UCAP, Utah County Alternative Probation, our drug courts, veterans courts, mental health courts. That much money would have to go into something like that.
Who controls it now versus who controls it with this resolution?
Right now, the money's just going into the general fund. And they're not segregated at all, there's general fund
That's the
monies.
commissioners.
That's the commissioners. And this doesn't take away the commission authority. But in my view, a lot of the debate is whether these monies should be part of the general operating costs of the government entity. And a lot of the opposition is that it should not be part of regular operation costs. So that's why the state created a grant program. That's why we're essentially doing something similar. And for us to expend any monies, it requires the regular process. Commission approval, the clerk auditors or the budget officer's approval before we spend it even with this new resolution.
Who ultimately controls it though with this resolution?
The commission? So I would have to propose the expenditure, and you would have, like anything else, you would have the authority to approve or deny that. And the clerk auditor in their normal role and duty.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
just a
yes.
couple clarifications. First of all, are there different types of forfeiture funds? I mean, are there some that are from federal forfeiture versus local forfeiture? And then the other clarification would be,
Let me answer that one. The answer is no, not for our office, no.
okay, so we don't deal with federal
Yeah.
forfeitures at all?
No. Now, the sheriff's office does, but we do not.
Okay, but the county,
The county does.
This,
The
and this
county.
doesn't affect the sheriff's office and how they manage their forfeitures.
so this is just something that involves your office?
Yeah, and again, technically, these are fees, attorney fees, not forfeiture fees, but that's kind
Right.
of a,
And then the other clarification on there is usually those types of forfeitures that affect your office, is that stuff that comes from the judge going ahead and as part of his ruling saying, and so much of this will go to the county attorney, et cetera? And with that in mind, to cover those costs, does he put restrictions? Does the judge usually put restrictions on what it can be used for as part of his order?
so the first answer is these are all judicially authorized. We cannot, we can seize the money pending legal proceedings, but we cannot forfeit it until the proceedings are finalized and the court orders the forfeiture. The judge does not have the authority to tell us where to put the money, no.
If he specifies it specifically for prosecutorial stuff or anything?
Yeah, maybe you're referring more to restitution? So the judge,
No, just in general, what I'm trying to
the
clarify.
judge does not have the authority, no, the courts do not have the authority at the district court level to indicate the authority is to indicate whether it's forfeited based upon the statute, but not where the money goes.
Okay, so the judges don't, because, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to clarify, as you're looking at something like this, that we not get in an area where we may be in conflict with what is stipulated or required by the judicial, and I'm naive in this area, I don't understand exactly what happens, I just urge caution, because that would be something, as the auditor's office, us or our external auditor may at some point do an audit, and then I just want to save us, creating a problem down the road if we
Sure.
can stop it on the front.
See, my concern is, your comment was, these are typically attorney fees.
Correct.
That's what I can't get over here, because currently the funds are going to, as you answered Commissioner Lee's question, the general fund.
Correct.
The general fund is which we fund the entire attorney's fees section that we're talking about currently. So
Correct.
in essence, why do we need a change to tell us to not put it in there? Because if you have extraordinary expenses, we hear them, we address them, we take care of them. So I guess my question is why would we need something else? Because again, if we need to put more money in drug courts or mental health courts or veterans courts, we can already do that.
That's correct.
So I guess my question is, why have a resolution? If it's already coming back to the general fund, what does it help us? What does it protect us? You see what I mean? Why do we need to deviate from the current practice?
You don't need to. This is not a requirement. We're already in full compliance with the law. Whether we do this or not, it won't change our compliance with the law. It's a policy decision that we're asking the commission that you may want to consider. From our office's standpoint, it doesn't actually make a difference. But as a policy matter, again, a lot of the concern about forfeitures is where is the government entity putting that money? And a lot of the fight is a lot of people don't want government to be funding itself off these forfeiture monies on a day-to-day basis. When we put it into the general fund, we are funding ourselves on a day-to-day basis with these monies. So what we're suggesting is a policy decision is, does the commission want to segregate the money similar to how the state does, so they're not in a general fund, and they're used for specific purposes, basically to educate, to combat a lot of the things specified in the resolution. There's no requirement that you do this.
So what if we did this under the now therefores in the third paragraph down, it says money in the forfeiture legal proceeding fund is authorized to be expended by the Utah County Commission's office in consultation with the Utah County Attorney's office, and then, and then finish that sentence out.
That's fine.
You'd be fine with that?
Sure. Again, just for simplicity of how money gets spent by the county, we don't really particularly care. So that'd be fine. But I guess maybe Brian's better to answer that. Would it be?
My biggest concern is just whatever we do, much like Mr. Buman, is just to make sure that we're transparent up front, because I know over the years there has been a big debate that these forfeiture funds are not to be used for, superfluous purposes or whatever. And I would just caution that we make sure we understand how things work moving forward, and I know the Civil Division has looked at that. So I would be in support of making sure that there's the appropriate oversight.
This actually kind of puts us ahead of where where anybody else is. We're being proactive in saying we're not going to use the money to fund day-to-day operations. We're going to use it only for purposes that the legislature's already authorized in 24-4-117. But again, yeah.
Sheriff Tracy, in support of that idea, this is the way the state works it. Those funds are not commingled with general state funds. They're set in by what the Commission of Crime and Juvenile Justice, CCJJ, that goes into a special account, and then we have to ask for grants. And we don't always get back what we put in there. We put in a grant for a specific purpose, for a specific amount, and then those monies are either granted or not granted through a grant board that review all that.
You're one step away.
What's that?
The money.
We are, and again, what the county attorney is suggesting, that the county would basically duplicate that same system, and that is what the legislature of the state feels is appropriate. Takes it out of the general fund so that it's not doing the day-to-day, and it puts it in a fund where it can be requested with mutual approval. So you would be basically mimicking the state system.
And that was part of the reason why I said, I was mentioning why we put that it has to go through the Utah County Commission in consultation with, to give you a separation.
And that's fine. The only reason we wrote it that way is because for us to expend money, you always have to authorize it. So either way is fine with us.
My only familiarity with this is as a teacher. The state of Utah participates for us business and marketing teachers at the high school level and junior high. We participate with what they call the stock market game. They do a training, 100% funded by forfeiture and restitution from these people. And it's an amazing thing that kids get to use. That's why I ask what you'd use it for, because if it's not in the general fund and we can use it for education, if Richard Nance has a program that's going to be great, or whoever, right? That's really my question. That's my only experience with it, because I see the benefit that it has, and it's amazing that there's that much forfeiture federally to fund that program. But
And maybe that would be part of the question. Are there any departments that would any department be able to apply for this? Like the
Yes.
health department or something like that?
As long as they meet those 6 purposes specified, then they could apply for them, yes.
And they could apply for it and come before us.
Yeah, it's not a grab by us. We don't get the monies anyway. So it's really just an opportunity for us, in my opinion, to kind of be at the cutting edge, saying Utah County doesn't use forfeiture monies to fund day-to-day operations. We're kind of mimicking the separation the state has already set up with police departments that doesn't exist for county attorney offices. But we're saying we're doing this for the county attorney's office as well, so that there's a separation between these monies and their expenditure.
We're siloing the money and saying if you want to touch this particular fund, you need to go through a process and it has to be used for these specific purposes. and then it would come and be applied for.
Correct.
Would, I mean, this last weekend's been kind of a wild weekend in the way of trying to figure things out, and I actually hate it when we have a commission meeting right after a holiday, because you don't get a chance to run it through. Is there any problem with potentially continuing this for a week to have more discussion?
Oh, no, there's no rush. I don't think I don't know how many money's coming in right now anyway. There's no time frame.
I just haven't had full vetting of the whole thing. I've read down through it a couple times, and I don't think I've got my mind all the way around it in what the consequences could be, or where we're at for sure.
And if you'd like, I can send you a couple statutes that kind of refer to how
Sure.
the state does it. Yeah, we're in no rush.
Right.
Okay, then I'll move that we continue item 25 for 2 weeks.
Second?
I've got a motion and a second to continue item number 25 for 2 weeks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
2 weeks, because I will be missing next week, Jeff. Yeah, I'm out of town.
Can we go 3?
3 weeks?
Yeah, I'll amend that motion.
Okay. Second, still good?
Second?
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
3 weeks it is. Okay. Okay, number 27. I got some of my questions answered. It was confusing to me. It looked like I didn't realize we're paying for last year. The dates looked like they were wrong, but I got that clarified this morning in the rush of trying to get down here. But the second part is there's a name in the contract. Jurgen's name's in there, and I'm wondering if we can't change that and just put the director in there. And then second, we don't have an account in which this money's coming out of, and those were my two concerns. If we could change and put the director of Wasatch Mental Health in there as instead of Jurgen's name, and then I don't see an account for.
We just don't know.
And if we're expending $1,275,344, I'd like to know what account it's coming out of.
It's the
Sure.
asset forfeiture account. No. Just kidding.
And Mr. Chairman, as far as that, once again, this just gets back to the agenda items sometimes lacking the detail as to specific accounts. This is an ongoing thing that we've always done with Wasatch Mental Health. But it would really be beneficial, I think, to all that on any of these that we just list an account number or something as reference, because one, that means the party requesting funds, one, has done their due diligence in checking, and then we can just verify when we put our comments and do our budgetary
Yeah,
review.
I agree. I think this one is potentially the only exception because Wasatch Mental Health technically is not a department here. And our attorney who reviews it probably doesn't have a clue on that part of it.
But just
You're
ask.
right. You're right. In principle, I 100% agree. So
Yeah, just ask. But we do,
Yes.
we fund it. That's something that.
yeah, it's our
take
required match, actually, right?
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
portion.
Yes.
So my question is do we have this in an account? I mean, I'm assuming we budgeted for it, so it's in the account, because without an account on there,
And once again, with the
That's
short
easier.
weekend, we just didn't get time to verify and talk to our finance officer too, to verify that. So that was, the reason I put no budget count listed is just because
'Cause there's
I
not
even
one
looked,
listed.
there wasn't one listed, and I even, of course, I was up at a conference in Logan for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and so with the short week, it's
is there
just-
a time deadline on this that needs
They're
to be
used
done
to us
by?
not paying on time.
I know that they are interested in getting the money sooner rather than later. I suggest you either approve it subject to this verification, or you continue it a week.
I don't
and-
mind approving it, subject to the account
We
number
can-
being
Yeah,
listed for it.
and I think
As
that,
long as it's,
Yes.
I just want.
yeah, we can do
And the
that.
change of the name.
Now that we got some time,
Yes.
we can,
I'm okay with that.
yeah, we'll verify that.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll move that we adopt the resolution as stated in number 27 with amendments changing Jorgen Korbanka's name to Director of Wasatch Mental Health and subject to the verification of funds in an account.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve of, we're we're still on consent agenda.
Yep.
Consent number 27 with the stipulated changes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay, number 2 with the.
I just had a quick one, unless anybody else did on number 2. Renee, on bottom of page 5, there, in dealing with the number 4, the projects list from MAG on the July 5th, it says, with the stipulation the no county funds will be approved for a BRT free fare zone. And actually what the addendum to the motion was, is that you could put with that stipulation that if the free fare zones are awarded on the BRT project, the county funds for projects would be scrutinized by the commission, and that's what we said. So, with that clarification, that way the wording
Match the
matches
motion.
what the intent was. That was the only change I had on those minutes.
Any others?
And then I'll move that we approve the minutes with the changes for July 5th commission meeting.
Second?
A motion and a second to approve the minutes with the change stipulated. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. We struck number 4. Number 21.
Number 5.
Aye.
Wait, I flipped the page. I flipped the page wrong. Sorry. I went back. I was reading notes. Okay, number 5 on this one, if you can hang on one second. This one has been a long process, hasn't it, Bryce? And I just wanted to, first off, thank your staff and many others that are here in the audience for going down through this process. This came about with some stipulations from the state on a resource management plan. It's been an interesting process. It's been and it's been a great process for us. We've held town hall meetings. We've had lots, different comments. I don't remember how many hundreds of comments have come in. I had the opportunity to go out and speak with a lot of the towns, mayors, and city councils about the RMP process, and well, we got one or two comments back, but not a lot. But they were appreciative of the amount of information on there, and I think sometimes people think that these things just kind of jump and pop out of the air. That is not the case. It's been scrutinized. I know I've read every single word in there a couple times and then went back and changed it over and over. And I think that as we work with BLM and the Forest Service, it's been a positive experience and one that we need going forward in our plan as we work with our federal partners. And the thing that I liked the most, one of the things I liked the most about it, was kind of the historical background that we had in this. I think that's fascinating to read. That we were one of the very first states to actually, first counties in the United States to actually go through and have some zoning, across the entire county, which is just kind of a fascinating historical point. So, again, thank you for all that you've done. If you want to kind of tell us where we're at and what it looks like.
Sure, this is Bryce Armstrong, Community Development. Just to kind of echo Commissioner Lee's comments, we're to the point where we have a proposed resource management plan before you for approval. As you're aware, Utah State Code was amended in 2015 and then further amended in 2016 to require every county in the state to add as part of their general plan a resource management plan for what they defined as called as the public lands. And public lands are basically federal public lands by its state definition, for 28 defined resources, and gave the county an opportunity to establish objectives, findings, policies related to each of these resources. Gives the county the opportunity to have a policy statement and a voice per se for a project or a policy that the federal agency may have on federal lands, and now the county would have an established policy and would have an opportunity to be heard as part of the federal procedure. What I've prepared for you in your agenda request are all the backup from the Planning Commission meetings, the actual proposed document, which is going to be Chapter 6 of our general plan. There are two versions there. One is the version that was recommended by the Planning Commission through a number of versions, And then we've had some additional suggestions or recommended changes, and that's the second version. That's
The
before you.
amended version.
Yes.
That you helped with, right?
The amended version is the one that I'd like to see us.
Right.
Right.
That one has state comments.
Absolutely.
And a
And many others.
question on that, the hard copy version you dropped off, is that the amended version, or is that the?
When was
No.
that dropped off?
No.
No.
That was the draft. That was the PC
Yes.
draft.
Yeah, so that was what the planning commission recommended.
Yeah.
Since then, there's been some comments from state agencies and the commission.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and staff would support that also. And we do have rural community consultants here, Mike Hansen and Shannon Ellsworth. As you're aware, the state provided funding for each county to utilize.
They've only been a little bit busy as well.
It's been quite a process, so.
And thank them too for that.
So they can kind of give you some feedback on specifics if you have any questions. And just grateful that we're, to this point, state law required this to be approved by August 1st, and so.
Well, they actually moved the deadline, so this has been an ongoing project for nearly 2 years
Yes,
now.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I think publicly, before we move on the motion, I'd just like to thank Mike, your company, Bryce, your staff, and Commissioner Lee especially. For 2 years, he's not only represented the commission and the county, but put in many, many hours doing this, so.
Appreciate that, and yeah, Commissioner Lee's been really helpful and great to work with on this, so.
You need to come up. Sorry, you gotta come up.
Gotta earn your money. Well, I mean, publicly.
This is the question, and you probably heard me because I know we've went back and forth on a whole bunch of stuff. What's your feelings on the strength of this? And in the future, when we negotiate and when we participate with our federal partners when it comes to public lands, where do you see us? Because we're not the only county that you're dealing with, and so I just wanted to kind of get your perspective of where we're at.
I'm Shannon Ellsworth with Rural Community Consultants, and that's Mike Hansen. And we think it's a really strong plan. It's a tenable plan, something that's defensible. And recently the BLM is moving towards a more local-based approach to planning. Just in the last month or so, we've seen releases on that. So it's exciting to see that this plan will be used. It will be considered. It won't be shelved by the BLM. It'll be more incorporated than we've seen in, the 10 years past. So.
Yeah, you had the wildfire situation over there in the Alpine area. Well, right now, as of today, you will have a policy position that's very clear. It's hard to misunderstand Utah County's materials. That's what I like most about Utah County's plans.
So some of them, and if I can point out just a few of them that I like that are in there. One, we just barely talked about growth in the county, and we had that Gardner Institute saying that by 2065 we're going to have 1 million, I can't remember. It's over 1 million people potentially coming here. And one of the things that we have in the plan when it's talking about federal lands is a reasonable disposal of land that is problematic for the cities when they start to expand. And in particular, we looked at areas where BLM land comes and crosses right across roads all the way down, and if we had to hit that with planning and then goes through the NEPA process, it'd be problematic. That was one that we have in there. We also talked about water. I mean, water was one that we put in there, that even for future dams if necessary, because without water, I don't know how we're going to grow. I mean, those are the things that we have in this plan. And probably last, I want to point out, because I know Commissioner Graves and I worked with the BLM when it came to the shooting range and the closure of that land there. And I think that's a model of how if we're engaged in the process, then things can get done. And that one's a model that when we engage in it, it's not, we just don't take whatever's given to us. We actually have a voice in there. And that's what this resource management plan does, is it gives us that opportunity to be at the table and say, hang on a second, what about this? What about that?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it's a long time coming, a lot of different stuff going on, a lot of meetings. Sometimes we were watching paint dry, other times we're actually getting stuff done.
That's right. Yeah.
I still hope you have the nice setup in St. George this year to discuss and show everybody our great plan.
That's right.
I guess one thing I failed to mention, I wanted to acknowledge, is that with Utah County having a strong agricultural element and component, we did engage the agricultural community. Commissioner Ivey was great to to facilitate that at an auction or a banquet.
Like 300
and,
grazers, right?
Yeah.
we had the ability
300
to get
grazers.
some input on grazing issues, which are a big issue on federal lands, and so that's another element that I think need to be mentioned. So.
Yep.
And one recommendation that we have is that you don't let your plan dry out, that you update it, you know, go back next year and look at water, and then after that, look at wildlife, and then look at ag, and continually update it, especially water. That's going to be huge for your county. It is now.
Mhm.
So make sure that the best available information is incorporated. Since we did the data gathering 2 years ago, there's been data released, right? So it's not over.
That's Bryce's responsibility.
The other counties have contracted with us to work on future updates, so you could do that too.
No, I really appreciated your work. A couple comments on the plan as I've worked through it and read through it. One in particular that I was very grateful was the forest management, specifically addressing beetle kill and the devastating effects of devastating wildfires. The environmental impacts from lack of management from the federal government is atrocious. When we hear people talk about climate change and other environmental factors, one of the greatest contributors to that is the beetle kill in the West. And unfortunately, the environmental side has been unwilling to address that. So I was very grateful to see that addressed in our plan, and that we're going to try and encourage our local entities to more aggressively manage the forest so that we can actually reduce the carbon that's being emitted from down timber. And also, water is a critical component in that particular factor. Beetle kill trees absorb significantly more amount of water than healthy trees. And I was grateful for that, and the agricultural component. The historical data that was gathered was impressive, and I think it helps us paint a picture of where we can go with our grazing and again, the fire issues that are associated and the benefits of grazing there. So a big thank you to Commissioner Lee and to your organization for getting into the details there and making sure that we're putting in practical policies that actually improve the health and environment in our community, from air quality all the way down the spectrum to the food we're consuming.
The one thing we missed was policies on alligators in Utah Lake. We'll get that next time around.
Yes.
In the appendix. I don't know how that happened.
So, but it's a working document, right? So
That's
we
right.
can
It is a
update
working
it.
document. Gotta be careful.
Alligators not allowed.
We gotta be
We can
careful
do
though.
it
We don't
next
want
year.
them to put them as an endangered species in Utah Lake, because that will start a whole different problem.
The
First thing
algae
you know, we'll have
too.
No, I appreciate that. Utah counties was kind of an interesting situation because we are working all over the state doing these. The big Bryan Head fire, we had people that were boots on the ground, real time, real world experience working with the forest in a catastrophic event like that. They were writing their resource management plan at the same time, and we would share those ideas across a number of counties. So.
Well, what makes ours so unique is we have so many different aspects in our county.
Yeah.
As far as other counties may only have one or two issues, we have many.
Yeah. Yep. It's very true.
Okay.
One last comment, I'll get out of here. We should mention this was kind of a twofold project. There was a data compilation part of the process that involved BioWest, another
BioWest, yeah.
consultant that helped this process too.
See, that seems like so long ago now.
But wanted to make sure that was acknowledged. and
Yeah,
referenced
they
to.
did a tremendous amount of work there too, to help out with it. So, is there anybody here from the public that wanted to speak to this? Okay. So I'd like to see a motion that approves the proposed amendment to the Utah County General Plan 2014 to adopt the resource management plan for public lands in Utah County.
So moved.
Second?
I got a motion and a second to approve or adopt the ordinance as stated in number 5 on the regular agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Thank you.
Number 10.
Number 10, Commissioner.
Yes, just two quick questions on this one. Where was the funding coming from?
This one was budgeted.
It was budgeted, I just didn't see any.
Is it not on there? Well, we should have
I,
it
I
listed
might
on
have
there.
missed it, I just didn't.
No excuse for the commission not doing that.
It just said it was available.
It has,
but
the
I was
account
just
number's
curious.
listed.
Oh, I missed that, okay.
Account number is 100-41110-2100.
Okay, that answers that question. The other question I actually had on this, reading down through this, having spoke with, heard a presentation from these guys about a week or two ago, I was wondering if it would be beneficial to include in this some verbiage, not just solely focusing on the transfer of land, but incorporating land management practices. So that as we move through this process, you know, it's kind of one of those we win where we can win. If it wouldn't be beneficial to add in there some verbiage on at minimum, encouraging more local land management. I know in meeting with our Forest Service guys, our BLM guys here at the local level, they're phenomenal to work with. We generally see eye to eye and agree. It's when we get to Sacramento and DC that we start to really run into some problems with our management of federal lands. So as long as they're in federal control, I think it would be advantageous for us to advocate and work on allowing local offices to coordinate with local entities to better manage it, so that we can get a little more teeth into the ordinance that we just passed. And so if we couldn't encourage them to
Do you have a
work
pr-
I like that.
Do you have a
twofold.
proposal to add to that, or do you want us to continue it so we can do that?
Whichever, I
I'm
would
okay
be,
either
I'd
way.
be fine continuing it, or if we want to just, you know, kind of add the verbiage as stated there. I think that would be very beneficial, especially with what we just passed, to give some direction there to work on that.
Is
It's kind of
there
a
any reason
two-pronged
we
attack.
need to approve it today? Is there,
No.
so if we postpone it a week to work on the verbiage, an addendum, okay? Move that we continue regular agenda item 10 for 1 week.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve, or to continue agenda item number 10 for 1 week. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And you're gonna work on that language?
Yeah, I can do
Okay,
that.
good. All right.
Did you send it to me? I
Yeah,
can plug
I'll
it in.
get with you, Dave.
Okay, I think that's actually a great recommendation. Okay, it looks like we need all of the closed session.
Okay, I'll move that we approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting for a strategy session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, water rights, or water shares for today's date at this location, following the completion of regular agenda items.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve and set a date, time, and location as stated in number 11 on our regular agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It passes 3-0.
I move that we approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual or individuals for today's date following, excuse me, at this location following completion of regular agenda items.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting as stated number 12 on our regular agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It passes 3-0.
Move that we approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting for a strategy session to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation for today's date at this location following completion of regular agenda items.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting as stated number 13. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0.
Move that we approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting for a for a strategy session to discuss the sale of real property, water rights, or water shares previously publicly noticed for sale for today's date at this location following the completion of regular agenda items.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting as stated number 14 on our regular agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That passes 3-0. Okay, we have no work session. Are there any public comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into our closed meetings.